So today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 things that we're just not prepared for. Let's get to it. So, as preppers, there's all kinds of things that we prepare for. Maybe it's natural disasters, maybe it's civil unrest, maybe it's an outbreak, or maybe it's a war. But there's a lot of things that we can try to be prepared for. And although you can never be 100% prepared, because the apocalypse is always going to throw new things at you, you can do your best to be as prepared as you can. Having said that, there are some things that we just can't prepare for until we have been there and we have lived it. And that is the psychological warfare that the apocalypse is going to wreak on us. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the 5 things psychologically that we are just not prepared for. Number 1 is when the unthinkable becomes necessity. So, in a post apocalyptic world, you're going to have to make tough decisions every day and maybe several times a day. Imagine being on high alert 24 hours a day and you're having decision after decision you're going to have to make with a clear head. That is going to take laser focus that could end up really wreaking havoc on your psyche and really possibly running you. For example, you remember the guy who was hiking, who was really an expert hiker, and he ended up getting stuck? He had to chop off his arm to survive. So as he was sitting there, he had to come up with the realization that, okay, either I'm going to stay here and die, or I'm going to have to chop off my arm to give me a chance to survive. These are the kind of situations that we're going to be faced with each and every day in a survival situation. So imagine this. This could be your daily routine. You wake up starving, and you have to go and you have to kill a family pet or a neighborhood pet or something that before the apocalypse happened you would have never thought about. But you have to do that in order to feed your starving kids and your starving family. And not only that, once you do that, you see other people who have kids of their own who are starving, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to share it and maybe all starve, or am I just going to take care of my family? These are the kind of things that we're going to be forced to face and forced to reckon with every day. You know, as humans, there's things that the brain can adapt to when it happens frequently. That's just how we're made up. But the thing about a post-apocalyptic world is there's going to be no normalcy. There's not going to be any routine. And it's going to be very hard to adapt to any kind of situation like that when you're constantly having to make decisions that before you would have condemned somebody to make, but you're having to do that out of necessity. It's going to be tough. Every day as a survivor, we're going to have to do things that would have brought us to tears before the apocalypse. Number 2 is when the human race actually becomes an endangered species. You know, right now there are over 7 billion people on this planet. Well, let's just say that whatever post-apocalyptic event happens wipes out most of the human race, and there's just a few million stragglers left all over the world. And some of those millions are fading off daily. That is a harsh reality to think about. We as human beings were not made to be alone. That's not how we're wired. And although there might be some times you think, oh geez, I'd like to get away from everybody, going through that solitude and that silence day after day after day will get to the strongest and get to the best of us. I mean, think about how many things you do a day that require human interaction. You're dropping by to get gas. You're getting a coffee on the way to work. You're going grocery shopping. There are, in fact, most everything we do daily, we have to interact with other people. It's part of our routine. Now take all of that away, and let's say you're going days or weeks or hours without any other human contact. Can you see how this could start to really play an effect on your mind? Let's look at Will Smith in the movie I Am Legend. He was so desperate after a year for human contact that he actually started interacting and talking with mannequins at the video store. In fact, he would sit there thinking or talking to his dog, thinking, okay, can I ask this girl out? Even though it was a mannequin and he knew it, he was sweating thinking about going and talking to him. Another instance or example is like Tom Hanks when he was in Castaway. He was so desperate for human affection and human conversation that he was actually cutting himself so he could make blood and make Wilson on the ball just so he could talk to somebody. The fact of the matter is that extreme isolation, it fractures our sanity. It makes making normal, rational decisions almost impossible because there's a whole part of our life where we're used to that when you take that interaction away, humanity fades with it. Number 3 is when the normal rules of society has been changed forever. And what I mean by this is think about Negan in The Walking Dead. You've got a sociopath who actually thrives in this. They see the opportunity and they take over, and what might have seemed to be morally wrong all of a sudden is the right. And he can take or manipulate other people and other situations because of the threat of everyday life and make them think or make his group think that this is how it's got to be to survive. In a post-apocalyptic world, people like this, personalities like this, they are going to thrive and they are going to be a huge danger to all the rest of us. The next item is when your brain is trapped. You know, the fact of the matter is PTSD is going to be running rampant in those days. You're going to have memories of when the event actually happened and seeing your friends, family, and a lot of people you know dying. You're also going to see people who you've grown with and gotten close to after the fact start dying. Your friends and your family. You're going to have visions in your head of people you might have had to kill to survive or for your family to survive. Those moments are going to play over and over in the back of your mind and in your head all day long and in your dreams. And it's reasons like this where the Negans of the world rise to the top. Just think about how hard it was in real life when you've lost a family member or a friend and you've had that funeral. And now insert that with several a day, maybe several hundred a day. It's going to be hard to separate daytime from nighttime nightmares, and this is going to plague you. And when this plagues you, this is when the world without rules and the world without normal society starts to change because of its effect on our psyche. And finally, it's when you're out of reasons. And this one's a tough one. I mean, there are going to be a lot of people, maybe a few days after, maybe a few weeks, months, or even a year or so, who just throw their hands up in the air and say, why should I even go on? I'm having to live day to day, barely making it, forever on high alert, stressful, not knowing when my last moment is. At least if I end myself, I might have some peace. So there are going to be a lot of people from the moment the apocalypse happened who have one bullet in their gun with their name on it. And there's no really way around this. It has got to be the worst feeling in the world to know just to live, I'm going to have to do things I don't want to do. Or I'm going to have to live in a way that nobody should have to live. At these moments, you're staring into the abyss and it's staring back at you. And it's hard to get your mind off of things. This is where a lot of maybe suicide bombers and different groups and gangs, how they recruit people. You've got nothing else to lose. If you die and think it's an escape, great. Then you die. But these are how these groups come and how they bond together. People who don't care about life, who don't care if they move on, they form these groups and they wreak havoc. So their whole point and what they're thinking is, if I die, it gives me peace. So you're going to have people who are just going to take care of it themselves. And you're going to have people who are going to live crazy and do things that might get them killed. That's going to wreak havoc on everybody else. Just because if they die, they think it's an escape. These are just a few of the psychological warfare that we as survivors of an apocalypse are going to have to go through daily, even hourly. And you can see how the first time could bring you to your knees, but imagine that happen time and time again, day after day after day. I mean, you can be as prepared as humanly possible, but in that situation, you just don't know how you're going to react, how you are going to prepare. And that is one scary thing about the apocalypse that you're just not going to be able to address until you get there. And that's just the psychological damage. So part of prepping now is prepping psychologically. It's knowing what you want to live for, know what's worth fighting for, knowing that you have people in your group that will help you get to the goal, that might keep you from doing things that you're going to regret, or might be there to grab your hand when you have to do it and say, hey, you had to do this, it's okay. That's the only way we're going to be able to get through that kind of situation. So prepare all you can. Prepare physically, prepare in your mind, prepare obviously with the food and all the other preps that you know how to do. But psychologically, the best way to address that when it happens is to be a rock yourself and to have the friends around you and the group members around you that's going to help you be what you want to be in the apocalypse. Guys, I hope this video got you thinking. It got you thinking about what could happen. It's not all movies with happy endings like we see sometimes with prepping. There's going to be some life-altering things that you're going to have to encounter daily, and you're going to have to be able to survive through that. And what I mean by that is forgiving yourself or forgiving your loved ones who have to do something. I hope you got some value out of this. If you did and it got you to thinking, give us the thumbs up. And as always, guys, remember, prepare, survive, and thrive.